The stars had always been silent witnesses. For billions of years, they had watched countless worlds live and die. But on this night, the stars themselves seemed restless. They flickered in strange colors, as if something ancient and powerful was moving between them. The rulers of the galaxy had made their decision. They had grown tired of hearing stories about Earth. This tiny planet was spoken of as a death world, a place so violent and unpredictable that even predators from other systems feared to set foot on it. And yet, the humans who lived there not only survived, they thrived. They built ships, traveled space, and spoke with courage to races far older and stronger. To the galaxy's rulers, this was arrogance. And arrogance had to be punished. So they summoned their greatest weapons. Not fleets, not machines, those had already failed against humans before. This time, they called upon their living gods. These gods were beings older than empires. They were said to drink the fire of stars, to crush planets beneath their hands, to silence entire civilizations with a single word. They were the galaxy's last answer, its eternal enforcers. Wherever they had gone before, nothing had survived but silence and worship. And now their steps were pointed toward Earth. High above the blue planet, the first tier opened in the sky. The black of space bent and twisted, glowing with white fire. People across Earth stopped what they were doing. Farmers froze mid-swing of their tools. Pilots paused mid-sentence. Children dropped their toys and looked up. The tear grew wider. Out of it came a storm of light, burning through clouds and splitting the night apart. Birds scattered in terror. Wolves howled from forests. The oceans themselves shook with giant waves, as if the planet was warning its children. 7 figures emerged. They were giants of living flame, clothed in shining armor that shimmered with stars. Their eyes burned like suns. Their voices rolled like thunder even though they had not yet spoken. They did not descend to the ground but stood in the skies, towering shapes that no human machine could measure. Across cities, people felt an ancient fear stir in their bones. Generations of myth, buried in memory, whispered to them, "These are gods." The leader raised his hand. Space itself bent under the gesture. His voice rolled across the continents, carried by no wind, no speaker, only power. "Children of Earth," he declared, "we are the judgment of the stars. You have walked too far, claimed too much. You dare to call yourselves strong. But now, you will remember your place." His words cracked the air. Windows shattered in distant cities. The ground trembled like it was alive. Rivers churned and boiled. Entire forests bent as if bowing before him. Yet, in the streets and fields, no one bowed. Humans stared upward. Some shielded their eyes from the blinding light. Some clenched their fists. Some whispered to each other, not with fear, but with anger or curiosity. In one city square, a soldier muttered under his breath, "We've seen worse storms than this." The gods heard it. Their burning eyes turned toward him, then toward the millions like him. For the first time in endless centuries, silence fell not from fear, but from defiance. The leader god's voice rose again. "Kneel," he commanded. "Kneel before the eternal ones." Mountains cracked. Seas surged. Lightning raged across the globe. The atmosphere itself seemed to obey. But the humans did not. Some laughed. Some raised cameras to record the moment. Some stood shoulder to shoulder, their eyes steady, their backs straight. In that instant, the gods felt something they had never known before. Not the obedience of worshippers. Not the terror of the conquered. They felt resistance. Up in their hidden fleets, the alien rulers watched. They expected Earth to surrender, expected the humans to collapse under divine presence. But what they saw instead made their hearts uneasy. The humans were waiting. The air was heavy. The sky cracked with fire. But humanity did not bend. The gods had arrived with thunder, with light, with fury. But Earth remained still, silent, unbroken. The arrival was complete. The judgment had begun. Yet for the first time in their long existence, the gods were not sure if they would be the ones giving the judgment or receiving it. The 7 gods had arrived. Their light had torn the skies. Their voices had shaken mountains. But even after all of that, the humans did not kneel. The gods thought it was arrogance. They had crushed civilizations before. They had forced entire species to crawl on the ground in worship. To them, humanity's silence looked like pride waiting to be broken. So they descended. The first god touched Earth's surface in a desert. His steps turned sand into glass. His shadow stretched like fire across the horizon. The air boiled around him, and storms twisted above. From miles away, cameras captured his arrival. Soldiers watched through scopes, scientists through satellites. Across the world, people stared at their screens as if watching the opening of a new age. The god raised his hand. He expected humans to scatter like insects. Instead, he saw figures walking toward him. Soldiers in dusty armor. Farmers carrying tools. Children peeking from behind broken walls. They stood firm, even when their skin burned from the heat of his aura. He spoke again, his voice shaking the desert floor. Bow, mortals. This world belongs to the stars now. The humans did not bow. One soldier only raised his hand and pointed at the sky. The god turned, and for the first time he noticed the world itself. Earth was not like other planets. Its storms were wild, its oceans violent, its mountains sharp and restless. Even its animals were predators by nature. On other worlds, gods were supreme. But here they felt something pressing against them, something unseen. The second god landed in the middle of a jungle. His power was fire, and with a gesture, he tried to burn the trees to ash. But the forest refused to fall. The flames spread quickly, yes, but the rain came quicker. Torrents of water poured from the sky as if the world itself fought back. The god roared, but his fire sputtered against the endless storm. Birds shrieked, jaguars leapt through shadows, insects swarmed in billions. Every corner of the jungle attacked him in some way. His divine strength was real, but the death world was older, tougher, and endless. The third god chose the oceans. He stood upon the waves and commanded them to kneel. At first, the sea obeyed, bending into walls of water. But then the waves rose higher and higher until even he could not control them. Thunder cracked above, and a beast from the deep surfaced. Its body larger than a city block, its jaws lined with teeth sharper than steel. The gods struck it with lightning, but the beast only roared back. For the first time in centuries, a god felt challenged. The humans watched all of this. Some were afraid, yes, but most were quiet, their faces unreadable. They knew their planet. They had grown in its storms, fought in its jungles, sailed its furious seas. They were children of the death world, and they understood something the gods did not. Earth did not kneel to gods. Back in the desert, the leader of the seven looked around. His fire still burned, but his steps were heavier. The air was pulling at him, dragging at his power, making it weaker with every breath. He felt the gravity pressing on him like invisible chains. Humans walked closer. One of them, an old man with weathered skin, looked up at the towering giant. He did not shout. He did not run. He only said, loud enough for the cameras to record, "You stand on Earth. Here you are not gods. Here you are guests." The words cut through the silence. The gods were not used to being spoken to this way. On every other world, mortals screamed, prayed, begged. But here, a fragile human spoke as if he was the one who ruled. In distant ships, alien rulers leaned closer to their screens. Unease twisted in their stomachs. They had promised their empires that humans would break under divine presence. But the longer they watched, the more it looked like the opposite was happening. The death world was not breaking. It was fighting back. And the humans, they were smiling. The fourth god tried to show power. He split a mountain with a single strike of his blade. Rocks tumbled. Dust covered the horizon. But when the smoke cleared, humans stood on the other side, their rifles steady, their eyes calm. The mountain may have fallen, but the people did not. The gods began to understand the whispers they had heard in distant galaxies. Deathworlders. A word said with both respect and fear. Creatures who lived where no one else could, who grew strong in places that killed everything else. The gods had faced armies, empires, beasts of the void. But they had never faced a planet that rejected them. They had never faced a people who refused to kneel, even when their lives hung by a thread. By the end of that first day, the gods felt something unfamiliar in their immortal hearts. Not worship, not victory, it was doubt. They had come to humble the humans. But now, with every storm, every wave, every step on the violent ground, the gods wondered if perhaps it was they who were being humbled. And Earth had only just begun. The gods had spread across the planet, but their pride was already shaking. Earth had not welcomed them. The planet's storms, jungles, and oceans had fought back as if alive. And the humans had not kneeled. The rulers of galaxies who watched from distant fleets grew impatient. Show them, they demanded through their channels. Crush their spirits. Break one, and the rest will fall. The leader of the 7 gods obeyed. He chose a valley near the edge of a great city. Skyscrapers rose in the distance, and thousands of humans gathered on rooftops and open grounds to watch. News cameras hovered in the air, broadcasting the scene to every corner of Earth and far beyond. The rulers wanted a spectacle, and a spectacle they would get. The god stepped forward. His body glowed like molten metal, his shadow covering the valley. He raised his arm, and with a simple gesture the ground shook. Rocks split open, and the side of a mountain cracked into 2. He wanted to remind humans what power looked like. The crowd gasped. Some backed away. But still, no one bent their knees. The god spoke, his voice thunder rolling across the earth. You see, I can break mountains. Your walls, your weapons, your cities are nothing before me. Kneel now, or I will shatter this land. The threat was clear. Yet in the middle of the valley, a small group of humans stood their ground, soldiers, scientists, even civilians. They had been sent to confront him, not with worship, but with witness. One man, scarred and old, stepped forward. He carried nothing but an old rifle slung across his shoulder. Against a being that could destroy mountains, the weapon looked like a toy. The god noticed him. His glowing eyes narrowed. Do you defy me, mortal? The man did not shout. He spoke calmly, his voice almost quiet, yet it carried in the strange silence that followed. We have seen mountains fall before. We have seen storms that swallow cities. You think this is power? To us, this is only nature. The god laughed, his voice shaking the valley. You compare my divinity to storms? I am beyond nature. I am eternal. But even as he laughed, he felt something. The planet pressed on him like invisible chains. His energy bled into the air, swallowed by Earth's heavy gravity, by its endless hunger. The human slowly raised his rifle. He did not aim to kill, not yet. He simply lifted it as a reminder. This was the tool humans had carried into every corner of their world, through war, through survival. Against predators larger than them, against challenges stronger than them, they had always endured. The crowd grew louder. Murmurs turned into voices. People began chanting. Not prayers, not fear, but words of defiance. You are not our gods. The god raised his hand to strike. Lightning burst from his palm, crashing into the ground where the human had stood. Dust and fire exploded upward, covering the sky. The valley shook as if the end had come. But when the smoke cleared, the human was still there. His clothes torn, his body bruised, but he stood. He wiped blood from his face and lifted the rifle again, steady and calm. The cameras caught the moment. Billions watched as one fragile human faced a god and did not fall. The god froze. For the first time in eternity, his attack had not broken his target's spirit. For the first time, he felt something strange inside him, hesitation. The human spoke again, louder this time, so that the mountains themselves seemed to echo his words. On this world we do not kneel, not to storms, not to beasts, not to gods. The valley erupted with cheers. The humans shouted as one, their voices rising like thunder. Across the world, people who watched the broadcast felt something awaken in their hearts. Fear was gone. What remained was pride. The alien rulers watching from afar fell silent. Their plan had been simple: send gods to humble the humans and fear would spread. But instead, the opposite was happening. The humans were not humbled. The gods were. The leader god's hands trembled. His power still roared, but in his chest, doubt grew heavier. He turned to the others, and for the first time, his voice did not sound like thunder. It sounded almost human. They will not break. The rulers shouted into his mind, demanding more. Destroy them. Prove your divinity. But the humans were already moving closer, not with weapons raised, but with their heads high, their steps steady. They were not fighting with strength. They were fighting with defiance, with endurance, with the unshakable truth of their survival. The first challenge had been made. A god had tried to break humanity with mountains and lightning, and humanity had answered, not with worship, not with surrender, but with a single unshaken voice. We do not kneel. The gods had expected fear. Instead, they met resistance. And resistance, they began to realize, was far stronger than divine fire. The valley still echoed with the humans' words. We do not kneel. The chant of thousands carried through the mountains and rolled across the world. It was not just a phrase. It was a declaration. The 7 gods stood in silence. Their divine fire burned, but their confidence dimmed. In all their history, they had never faced such defiance. Armies had fled, empires had collapsed, rulers had begged for mercy. But here, fragile humans, with weapons like toys and bodies weak compared to divine strength, stood unbroken. The leader of the gods raised his hand again. He wanted to strike, to erase this stubborn planet. But when his power gathered, the world itself seemed to resist. The air grew heavy, his flames faltered, his light dimmed. Earth was not welcoming their strength, it was swallowing it. One of the other gods, the one who had tried to burn the jungles, growled in frustration. They mock us. End them now. But the leader hesitated. Something in the human's eyes had unsettled him. He had seen fear many times before, but this was not fear. This was challenge. Then, from the human side, someone else stepped forward. Not a soldier this time. A woman in a simple white coat, her hair messy, her hands carrying no weapon. She was a scientist, pulled there by duty rather than war. She looked up at the giant god and spoke, her voice steady. You do not understand. You think you are above us. But here your power bends. Here your light weakens. This is Earth. Even gods bow here. The crowd gasped at her courage. Cameras zoomed in, broadcasting her words across the globe. Billions heard her, and billions felt pride stir in their hearts. The god laughed, though his laughter was strained. You dare claim that we bow? We are eternal. The scientist shook her head. She pointed to the storm above them, the cracks in the mountains, the restless earth trembling beneath their feet. Look around you. The planet does not serve you. It fights you, and we are its children. The humans began to clap, then cheer. The valley shook again, not from divine power, but from human voices rising together. The gods, for the first time, felt small in front of mortals. To prove himself, the fire god struck again. He raised his hand, and a pillar of flame roared down toward the humans. It should have destroyed them all in an instant. But the storm broke at the same moment, heavy rain slamming down, smothering the fire. The flames hissed and vanished, leaving the humans standing in steam and mist, unharmed. The humans laughed. Actual laughter. The sound rolled like thunder across the valley. The gods stared, their faces hidden but their silence clear. Their powers were divine, but Earth was stripping that divinity away piece by piece. Their strength was no longer infinite. The woman spoke again, louder this time. Do you see? You came to humble us, but this world humbles you. You are not gods here. You are visitors, and visitors do not command us. The words hit harder than lightning. Across the galaxy, the rulers watching through their fleets felt their pride cracking. They had expected Earth to collapse in fear. Instead, Earth was rising. The leader of the gods lowered his hand. For the first time, his voice did not thunder. It sounded strained. You humans? What are you? And the answer came not from one but from thousands. Their voices rose as one, shaking the very skies. We are Earth's children. We are deathworlders. We kneel to none. The chant grew louder, unstoppable. Even in distant cities, people shouted the same words in streets and squares. Across oceans, across mountains, across the globe, humanity answered together. The gods, beings who had made galaxies tremble, now trembled themselves. They had power, yes, but humans had something greater, something the gods could not understand, something stronger than fear, stronger than worship. It was unity. The alien rulers watching clenched their fists in rage. Strike them down. Show them who rules the stars. They screamed into the minds of the gods. But the gods did not move. Their divine bodies burned with fire, but inside a cold weight grew heavier. Every second on Earth was draining them, making them weaker. And every second the humans grew stronger, not in body but in spirit. The human answer had been given. They did not resist with weapons alone. They resisted with defiance, with pride, with courage older than stars. And the gods realized the truth. Even if they burned cities, even if they destroyed mountains, even if they shattered oceans, humanity would not bow. For the first time in eternity, the gods felt something dangerous in their immortal hearts. Fear. The night after the first confrontations was heavy. Smoke still rose from valleys, storms raged across oceans, and broken stones covered mountains. But Earth still stood, and its people still stood with it. The 7 gods gathered on a high ridge, their glowing forms dimmer than before. Their power still flared, but it did not shine as bright as it had in the void. Earth was draining them. Every breath, every step, felt heavier. The gravity pressed on their bones. The storms clawed at their fire. The very air swallowed their voices. The leader spoke, his tone sharp but quieter than before. This world resists us. It is poison to our divinity. But it does not matter. We are eternal. Mortals cannot win. Yet, even as he said it, doubt crept into his words. Below the ridge, humans prepared. Soldiers carried rifles, but not just weapons. Farmers brought tools. Engineers brought machines. Scientists carried strange devices that glowed faintly. It was not an army in the old sense, it was humanity itself. Every kind of human standing shoulder to shoulder, facing the gods. The 5th god, the one who commanded storms, grew impatient. With a roar, he stretched his arms wide. Thunder cracked, clouds spun, and a hurricane was born in moments. Trees snapped like twigs, waters surged, the wind howled like death itself. The humans braced. Buildings shattered. Waves tore through the coast. But still they did not kneel. Instead, they worked together. Soldiers pulled children into shelters. Farmers tied down defenses. Scientists released drones into the storm. Humanity did not scatter. It adapted. The god raged louder, pouring more power into the hurricane. But something strange happened. The storm began to fight back. Not against the humans, but against him. His own winds twisted, pulling at his form. His lightning cracked against his own chest. He staggered, his divine body trembling. The humans saw it. They saw a god stumble, and their fear turned into courage. One young soldier raised his rifle and fired into the storm. The bullet should have been meaningless, but in that moment it struck true. The god's armor cracked. Not deeply, not fatally, but enough. Enough for everyone to see. Gods could bleed. The cheer that followed shook the earth louder than the hurricane. The alien rulers in their distant fleets leaned forward in horror. This was not the spectacle they had wanted. Instead of submission, they saw rebellion spreading like fire. The 6th god, furious, tried to prove his strength. He lifted a mountain into the sky, ripping it from its roots. Rocks and dust rained down, a sight meant to crush human spirits. But even as the mountain floated above, the humans only looked up calmly. Then, together, they fired rockets, explosives, and beams of energy into the suspended mass. The mountain shattered midair, breaking into pieces before it could fall. The god roared in frustration. He had shown his might, but the humans had answered with their unity. And then came the final blow to their pride. The third god, who had once stood on oceans, tried again to summon a beast from the deep to crush the humans. He called with divine power, his voice echoing into the waters. Something answered. A shadow rose from the waves, massive and ancient. But when it surfaced, it did not bow to him. Its eyes turned to the humans on the shore, and it lowered its head to them instead. The god froze. His power had failed. The creature of earth had chosen its true children. The humans did not cheer this time. They simply watched, calm and steady, as if this was natural. And in a way it was. They had always lived side by side with the wild, the violent, the uncontrollable. The planet did not serve gods. It lived with its humans. The 7 gods looked at one another. Their flames flickered weaker. Their once perfect armor now showed cracks and burns. Their voices, once thunder, now carried strain. They were still powerful, yes, but they were no longer untouchable. The leader lowered his gaze to the humans below. His voice, heavy and slow, carried a question he never thought he would ask. What are you? And the answer came again, louder this time, from 1,000 throats, from every corner of the world. We are humans. We are deathworlders. We kneel to none. The gods trembled. Their divinity, built on endless worship and unquestioned fear, was breaking. For the first time in eternity, they realized something horrifying. They were not gods anymore. They were invaders standing on a world that refused them. And the world was winning. The battle had stretched across days. The gods had unleashed storms, fire, lightning, and even torn mountains from the earth. But earth and its people had not broken. They had endured every blow, stood through every storm, and answered with defiance. Now the battlefield was quiet. The valley where the first challenge had begun lay in ruins. Broken stones covered the ground. Trees lay uprooted. Rivers had changed their paths. Smoke curled in the distance. And yet, among all this destruction, humans stood alive. The 7 gods were no longer shining. Their armor was cracked. Their light flickered weakly, and their voices no longer thundered. They looked less like gods now, and more like wounded giants, tired and uncertain. The leader tried to speak. His voice was heavy, no longer rolling across the skies, but trembling. This cannot be. We are eternal. We cannot fall. But even as he said the words, he knew they were hollow. Every breath he took drained more of his strength. The world itself pulled at him, crushing his divine aura. Earth was not just resisting, it was consuming their power. The 5th god fell to one knee. His storm had collapsed hours ago. He pounded the ground in anger, but the earth did not shake. His fist left no mark. For the first time in eternity, he felt powerless. The humans watched quietly. No cheers, no taunts, no fear. They only stood, calm and steady, their eyes locked on the beings who had once claimed divinity. The silence was heavier than any roar. A child stepped forward from the crowd. She held nothing but a small flag, Earth's colors stitched together by rough hands. She planted it into the broken ground where lightning had once struck. The flag fluttered in the smoky air, small but unshaken. The gods stared. That tiny act, so simple, cut deeper than any weapon. The 6th god staggered backward. "Why do they not fear us?" he whispered, his voice weak. "Why do they not kneel?" The leader could not answer. High above, the alien rulers watched through their fleets. Their victory had turned to horror. They had promised their people that humans would be humbled. But all they saw now was silence. Silence that belonged not to fear, but to unbroken defiance. The 3rd god, the one who had tried to summon the ocean beast, collapsed entirely. His light sputtered out like dying embers. With a low groan, his giant form dissolved into nothing, leaving only ripples of energy fading in the air. The crowd gasped. One of the 7 was gone. Not defeated by a weapon, not slain by fire, but erased by Earth itself. The humans did not cheer. They only watched, their silence sharper than swords. The 4th god tried to rise, his pride still clinging to him. He roared and struck the ground with his blade. But the weapon cracked instead of the earth. The shock spread through his form, and his fire dimmed until only smoke remained. With a final cry, he vanished into dust. 2 gone. 5 remained. The leader looked to the sky, as if calling to the rulers who had sent them. His voice cracked with desperation. You sent us to humble them, but it is we who are humbled. His words echoed faintly, weaker than the wind. The silence after each god's fall was unbearable. Humans did not speak, did not move. They simply stood, witnesses to the collapse of divinity. Their stillness was louder than war. One by one, the gods fell. Some staggered, some collapsed, some dissolved into nothing, their light swallowed by the world they had tried to conquer. The ground did not remember their steps. The sky did not echo their names. At last, only the leader remained. His once blinding light had become a faint glow. His towering form shook, his breath shallow. He looked at the humans, not with anger, but with something deeper, something he had never felt before. Fear. He tried to speak, but no words came. His mouth opened, but the silence of earth was heavier than his voice. With one final flicker of light, his form broke apart, scattering into sparks that vanished into the night. And then, nothing. The sky grew calm. The winds died. The mountains stood still. The oceans were quiet. The gods were gone. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's enforcers, its eternal divinities, had fallen. Not in battle against fleets or weapons, but in silence after the war. The humans stood among the ruins, their faces steady. No celebration, no shouts of triumph. Only a quiet understanding. They had faced gods, and they had endured. The galaxy would soon learn what the gods had learned too late. On Earth, power does not rule. Courage does. The silence of that night was the loudest answer humanity had ever given. The gods were gone. Where once 7 burning lights had stood, there was nothing but smoke and silence. The world, scarred by storms and fire, was calm again. Mountains stood tall, rivers flowed, winds blew quietly across the valleys. The echoes of divine thunder had faded into memory. But Earth had not bowed. Humanity had not broken. News spread faster than light. Across cities and villages, across oceans and deserts, people whispered the same truth. The gods came to humble us, but they never returned. Screens showed the final moments of the giants vanishing into sparks, their forms crumbling against the weight of the world. Every corner of Earth saw it. Every child, every elder, every worker and soldier knew what it meant. The galaxy had sent gods to remind humans of their place. Instead, the galaxy had been reminded of its own mistake. In the alien fleets far away, silence ruled. The rulers, who had once laughed at humanity, now stared at their monitors in disbelief. Their greatest weapons, their eternal enforcers, had fallen, not in glorious battle, but in quiet defeat. No war fleets had been needed. No empires had saved the day. Earth itself, with its storms and its people, had ended them. Fear spread through the stars. Whispers traveled from planet to planet. If even gods cannot survive Earth, then what are humans? On Earth, the people did not call themselves gods. They did not claim divinity. They simply continued. They buried their dead, rebuilt their cities, and walked through the ruins with heads held high. For them, survival was not victory, it was life itself. A soldier who had stood in the valley told the cameras, "We do not want worship. We do not want thrones. We only want to live free. That is enough." His words reached beyond Earth. Civilizations across the galaxy listened, and something shifted in their hearts. Fear mixed with awe. Respect grew where once there had been scorn. For the first time, the galaxy did not see humans as reckless children of a death world. They saw them as something else, something older, something stronger. The legacy of the gods' fall was not carved in stone or shouted in songs. It lived in silence, in memory, in the image of mortals standing unbroken while immortals collapsed. One night, as the stars shone peacefully again, a child looked up at the sky. She asked her grandfather, "Will they ever come back? The gods?" The old man shook his head slowly. No. They came once, and Earth kept them. This world has no place for masters. Only for survivors. The child thought for a moment, then smiled. Then maybe we are stronger than gods. The old man did not answer. He only looked at the sky with quiet pride. And far away, in the halls of alien rulers, fear grew deeper. If humans could outlast gods, what could stop them tomorrow? If their courage could silence divinity, then who in the galaxy could ever hope to conquer them? Whispers turned into warnings. Do not fight the deathworlders. Do not test Earth. They kneel to none. And so humanity's legacy was written, not by their own words, but by the silence of gods who never returned. Years later, when explorers from Earth stepped onto alien worlds, they were not mocked, they were not threatened. Doors opened for them. Voices lowered in respect. Not because of weapons, not because of fleets, but because of the memory of that one truth. The gods had fallen on Earth. And still, the humans walked forward. The galaxy learned something that day. Power was not eternal. Fear was not unbreakable. Divinity itself could collapse. But courage, the courage to stand when the universe told you to kneel, that was the only legacy that mattered. And humanity carried it with every step.